Hi there, and welcome to our next video in our CRMBC series. Today we're talking about workers' compensation. My name is Stanley, and I'm the CEO of CRMBC and also the board chair. And I'm joined again by Michael McDonough, who is the principal of McDonough Insurance. He's also our broker liaison for CRMBC and the author of the book, The Employer's Guide to Workers' Compensation. Welcome, Mike.
Thank you, Kay. I'm glad to be here. So grateful to talk about my favorite subject, workers' comp.
Kind of boring, Mike, but I'm glad that you're into this.
Workers' comp. I'm kind of like a work comp geek, but that's because I make an impact and I enjoy doing so.
Yes, you do. Yes, you do. And what we're doing is making a huge impact on employers' bottom line through workers' comp. And most people don't know that workers' comp is the area that most employers are losing money. They don't realize it. They don't understand how it works. So let's get down to basics. So first of all, it makes my skin crawl when people say workman's comp, because when I was in law school, my professor in my torts class would dock us an entire grade if they said workman's comp. So I will always say workers' comp. Workers' compensation came about for a good reason. It's required by every employer to carry it, and the point of it is to take care of the injured worker when they're injured on the job. So the basis of it makes a ton of sense, and it's important. It's abused a lot, and it's a place where most employers are losing money. Mike, first, before we dive in, tell us about your history. Obviously, you literally wrote the book on workers' compensation. Tell us about your history. Why did you choose to focus on this, and give us a brief history of what you're doing with workers' comp?
That's a great question. I'm happy to share. I learned about 25 years ago that there's more to a business and controlling cost. And I was, writing liability insurance and writing all the other coverages and writing workers' comp. But I didn't really understand why workers' comp was, so much more expensive. But then when I realized that what the real cost was causing that, it was a lot more than their payroll or the type of industry they were in. And what I realized is that it came down to work injuries. And when work injuries aren't managed properly, what happens is the costs go up. And so it was really about focusing with the employer and engaging with them and showing them, because workers' comp, to me, it's the most misunderstood coverage there is, and it's the most costly on the balance sheet. So the only way to really control that was through managing the claims and setting up proactive programs for employers. And by doing so, that's where we've seen an impact in lowering their rates.
And in fact, in your book, you highlight 70 different things that an employer can do to control their workers' comp rates. And you have generously offered your book as a free ebook download on our website, CRMBC. So we obviously can't get through all 70, but let's first talk high level. How are workers' comp rates calculated?
Well, in traditional, they're calculated based upon, number one, the industry that you're in. So there's a classification for that type of employee. It's also based upon the state you're in. It depends on your payroll, depending on how long you've been in business. If you're like brand new in business, you really don't have any type of history or anything. So the carriers normally start you out with a flat rate based upon whatever industry you're in and the exposure. So with a traditional insurance company, they are using numbers based upon what's given to them by their actuaries and their data information, but it doesn't always go across the board. So in a SIG, we find that we are comparing members coming into the group compared to other members in the group. And by doing that, we look at our excess coverage, we look at our security deposits, and then based upon our surplus, allows us with the flexibility with the rates to offer a competitive rate.
In our previous videos, we talked about self-insured groups, and so that's going to be a thread through every video that we do. So we are a self-insured group that happens to insure workers' comp for restaurant owners. And you've got, like I said, 70 different tips, but there's some that you believe are top of the line, non-negotiable, the most important things that a restaurant owner or really any employer needs to be focusing on in order to manage this cost? Give us your top one first.
The first two words that come to mind are accountability and responsibility.
And explain what that means to you.
Okay, so a lot of employers just feel that, okay, it's a necessary evil. I've got my workers' comp. They get injured. They go to the doctor. Our rates go up. We pay it. That's just the way it is. And that's kind of like a nonchalant attitude. So the employers that we find that take accountability and responsibility for their injuries, in other words, they engage and they have a team within their organization that works closely with their insurance carrier and has processes and systems in place that get them through the system, get them to the doctor, documentation, accident investigations, coordinating with HR and safety, regular safety meetings. In other words, when workers' comp is top of mind, those are the employers that are winning.
Give us an idea of, because you've been around this a lot, you've seen everything. Give us an idea of how much of a financial impact it has made on your members before they had this, they got religion about this, and then after they started understanding this. What's the actual difference it made in their business?
The actual difference is they see a substantial reduction in cost. They see higher morale. They see fewer injuries. They have a lot less stress, a lot less frustration, and they have a better understanding of how the system works. And once they understand how they can control their cost, they become more involved and more engaged. And then it becomes like anything else. They're looking at their inventory, they're looking at their labor costs, they're looking at their leases, they're looking at real estate, whatever costs they have to run their business. They now understand that workers' comp is one of those things that they can control the cost.
And it's interesting. So, there's every different industry, but we're specifically in restaurant. And in restaurant, there's so many things that you're looking at. You're looking at your food cost, your labor, your marketing. If you're a franchise, you've got your franchisee fees. You've got, all of these different things that workers' comp sometimes goes by the wayside, like you said, until it becomes a problem. And so what we do within CRMBC and what you do with all of our brokers and with your particular clients is we help them get on top of this before it's an issue. We also help after it's an issue because it's very easy for us to help people get on top of it. But there's so many little nuances that people don't realize. As soon as, and one in particular, as a lawyer, I can speak to this specifically, is when a claim becomes litigated, it becomes far more expensive than if it's managed properly right from the beginning. And you've seen the gamut of how claims are managed properly, how to avoid litigation, and how claims have just gone off the rails in litigation. Talk to us just a little bit about that journey. What can be done to avoid litigation in the first place, and then what can be done to still mitigate losses once it becomes litigated?
Oh, this is great. There's no perfect system. However, a business owner, if you have a disciplinary program and you follow it, what I've found over the years is the employers that don't follow their handbook are the ones that are having the biggest challenges with work injuries. For example, they keep employees too long that shouldn't maybe be there, that ultimately file claims that cost them a lot of money. But it really starts with documentation. So what we try to encourage is that employers start with a immediate reporting process, regardless of the injury, no matter how minor you think it is, you have to let somebody know. And then that person is able to go to the resources. It could be triage, it could be the medical clinic, depending on what the circumstances are. But if an employer starts and managing that claim from the moment it happens and that employee is seen or evaluated, let's say within the first 15, 20 minutes of that injury, that's going to go a long way as far as savings. It's going to reduce time off work. It's going to help with not having to, increase your cost by, let's say, if somebody's out for a couple of weeks, you have to go to a leasing company and bring them in. So if an employee is, lost in the system and the employer has no control over that, what happens is the costs are 3, 4, 5 times what they should be. So it's really about immediate reporting and managing the claim from the moment it happens.
And we've even seen it's also a matter of the employer feeling cared for. We've had employers who, when there's an injured worker, depending on the type of injury that happened, doing things like getting them right into massage therapy if it was a stressful thing that happened, or acupuncture, or things that they're communicating. Because what we see is when there's this separation and no one's talking to them, there's going to be an attorney that comes and talks to them and says, I'm going to help you get your money. So it's an actual genuine caring for that employee and communicating with them and helping them navigate it so that they're not left with no other option but to go lawyer up.
I've seen where employees had every intention of just going through the process, getting to the doctor and getting back to work. But when nobody communicated with them, they figured, hey, I'm getting lost in the system. I'm not getting what I need. Maybe I need an attorney to help me. And that's where the costs started escalating.
And we all know that there's fraud in the system. We've had employers that on one day we had 30 different claims, and there was something going on with lawyers that came into that business. So the employer having the engagement and the positive relationship with their employee is critical. Another one I would like you to talk about, because we've seen some pretty remarkable results from this, is return to work. Tell me a little bit about that and the impact that has.
Well, every one of my clients has a return to work program. And if you start with return to work in mind at the beginning, that's where you're going to see the savings in the long run. So let's use a restaurant as an example. You go in there and they're a fine dining, and you've got sous chefs, executive chefs, you got serving staff, you got maitre d's, you have all these different employees working for you. So what you want to do is understand the operations. So if an injury does occur and it's a top employee, okay, let's find that solution before that injury occurs. So for example, it's your executive chef. If let's say he or she slips and let's say breaks their arm or breaks their leg, okay, can they still come back to work? Well, theoretically they can. It's up to the doctor. But if you can bring them back to work under light duty, they can still be doing writing orders. They can still be managing the kitchen, and they could be doing it with, they have scooters today. There's all kinds of apparatus that you can use. But it's really about identifying how we can get people back to work once an injury occurs. What I see is the reverse, is that nobody has a return to work program. An injury occurs, nobody has a solution. So they just tell the insurance company, you know what, we can't accommodate. So what happens is now we have an indemnity claim, and now that's driving up the employer's cost. And it's also, affecting the overall cost of the claim and so forth. But had they had a return to work program, they probably could have avoided that, kept the employee engaged, coming to work, which you want to do. And we also find that if employees are off work too long, they get comfortable getting a check every week at their home, and then they don't want to come back to work. And so sometimes you lose a good employee because of that. So a return to work program is huge, and it could be is responsible for almost 70-80% of your savings if it's done right.
Thank you so much, Mike. That's all we have time for this video, but we will deep dive. We could spend hours and hours on work comp, especially with all of the tips in your book, and we'll do more videos where we deep dive into some of these different topics. But in the meantime, you can download Mike's book at CRMBC.com. And Mike, we'll see you on the next video. Thank you.
No, thank you. Have a great day, Kate.